Okay, hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm Calvin and today we're about to have philosophy topic. So as we are talking about religion and about God in our last week, we already said about the way that God make evil exist and why that God didn't going to stop them from doing bad things or destroy the evil. So we still didn't going to figure out and we still cannot have the answer for the problem of evil yet. So today we will come to a theory that is the best way to explain that why God didn't going to destroy or delete the evil from this world. So today our topic is talking about the freedom of choice, which means that the God and evil exist both, but they didn't going to try to kill each other. They didn't try to erase each other, and they both exist in the world. But the things that make both God and evil is working on this world. That's because the God, even though is a holy good being and will stop us going to erase anything that make the bad things in the world. But still, if something that come to the human thing, come to the human mind, which means that they want to, they have the right to decide it. So God and evil will let that people have the right of being free to choose, which means that in many religions the idea of free will, which means that the abilities of people in that region to choose will they going to do the bad things or not, is the things that going to explain anything about evil and God. So this thing is very important because some philosophers argue that free will is a great good itself, because these things make humans humans, which means that they let humans do what they want. The free will let humans choose to be bad or good, and this thing is the true freedom that God let human be. So that's why the gods still have exist in the world with evil, and that's why they didn't really erase all of the bad thing in the world. So that's how the way that the human choose to be good or bad, and that's how God let them choose it, let them decide to be the people they want to be. But if we're going to set the problem like that, so this is another thing that led the philosopher and also me feeling a little bit like unacceptable if we just stop here, because there is something that's still bad for human and for the nature, but that's not caused by the human minds, which means that that thing is the nature bad, or you can say that the disaster. So as an example, earthquake, tsunami, typhoon, those things is things that come from nature and we cannot stop them or create them. So if we are going to see that God will just let we choose what people we want to be and let we choose the bad if we really want to. So why that they don't going to stop or erase the bad things that didn't come from our minds, which means that why don't they stop the disaster that just bad and didn't let people choose to get them or not. So in this situation there is a lot of ways to explain. Some philosopher thinks that yeah, maybe that's because God thinks suffering will let us be a better people. Without suffering and without bad things, people will cannot go into improve their kindness, their caring and their love, or even they cannot go in to use their kindness, or they don't even have them. So that's why suffering make people become a better and more like caring person. But that's just when we are going to use that bad things as an experience for us to go forward. So at this explanation we could see that they say suffering will make people become their better version, and that, yeah, that's a good way of explaining. But still there is some exception for that situation, because when someone going to suffer too much bad things, so they will become a villain, as we can see in our like Marvel or in the video or in the movie that we already see at the movie theater. And of course For an example, if a child see his father hurt its mom, so when it grow into a man or a woman, it will going to keep that opinion that yeah, a husband needs to hurt the wife. That's an example. That means that not everybody in the world will going to be an experience for us to go forward. But of course, my example cannot be the best one because that still come from the human body. So that's not the things that come from the nature body. But there is another way of explanation that I think it myself, and I think that's why God don't going to stop the disaster too if God really exists. That's because disaster, the first one, disaster is the things that made by natural. Yeah, that's right. But most of them will be created or may be created by human. For example, Japanese, they have a lot of disaster, but that's not because they are going to create disaster. They just have to suffer them. So that's the bad thing. So we will let the third explanation later. We just talk in our explanation now. But in a lot of different country and different nation, the way that disaster come to that nation almost 90% depending on how much electricity, how much property that people in the nation use, and how much economy friendly that the product in that country or nation is. So which means that there is a lot of case that the disaster coming to that nation because the polluting from human in that nation. So in some case that thing is makes sense with the way that God let we be free to choose our consequence. Okay, and now come for the last explanation. That's because God thinks that in the world is the natural things, right? The world is natural thing without human. The world is just going to work itself, and then he let the human choose to be bad or good. So that's for human. But when it's come to nature, that means that the nature didn't going to choose to be good or bad. It's just the way that the earth working. So the way that the earth working cannot be called a bad thing. Just human thing is a disaster. But for earth itself, is just the way that the world going to work on its body. So I think that the God, even though he can stop the disaster, if the God really exists, he should not do it because it's still just a way that he used to create the earth. So the earth will work itself and bringing itself effect. For an example, earthquake or the tsunami, it's just the way that the world or the earth working. It's not going to be a bad thing or what. But still, for human like me, we still think that that's a disaster and that's caused a lot of damage, right? So there is a difference between God minds and people minds too. And when God going to stop something, which means that's things that he didn't like to exist in the earth, and things that is absolutely bad and not caused by natural or people free choice. So that's when something will going to be erased. But you guys cannot ask us to find out what things has been erased, because if something has been erased, which means that we cannot remember about them and cannot notice that they are erased, right? Okay, so that's all for my video today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys on the next video. And now it's time for us to say goodbye then. See ya. Hope you like my video today.